Today, folks, I present to you the first day that Donald Trump has taken the lead in the state of Pennsylvania. All right, so if we're consulting the map, you can obviously that we have, several swing states. We're looking at Arizona, Nevada, Georgia, Pennsylvania, New Hampshire, Michigan, Wisconsin, and Minnesota. That's about 8 states that I think are in flux for people to win either way. And so we have some states that are kind of cornered off as safe Republican. So, for instance, we're not going to waste time today on Florida or North Carolina, Ohio, Iowa, Indiana, etc. Now, what we're going to talk about today, though, is primarily Pennsylvania. So in the RCP polls, which is like what the Bible is for people that are watching the election coverage, what you need to pay attention to. All right, so before we get to the polling in Pennsylvania, one must understand that Donald Trump is leading the presidential race in the generic ballot by 1.7%. And this is just on a 1v1. So a 1v1 Biden-Trump election is the most favorable to the Democrats you can possibly dream of. We're going off of this one because clearly we know that even though, we should win on paper, there's a few points shaved off inevitably. We've seen this the past 4 years. So just keep that in mind. So we're going to be using this number here. Even if RFK gets on the ballot, that's only going to help Trump. But let's just be a little more pessimistic for today. So looking at this, Trump leads the aggregate by 1.7. Now, as of a couple of weeks ago, it was actually over 2% pro-Trump. But what is different is that even though he's down 0.4%, which is nothing, he's up by 0.6, which is rare in Pennsylvania. Now, why this is important, folks, is because this is the biggest of the swing states, bigger than Michigan, bigger than North Carolina, Georgia, Wisconsin, etc. And what's more is that this is the state that Biden's the most likely to win by virtue of him being Scranton Joe or whatever bull job you want to talk about. So this is really key because you can see a lot of these polls have different results, but there's different qualities to these, of course, whether that be the sample size or the margin of error being different and more narrow on different polls. Now, I will tell you this. The Fox News poll was the most accurate when it came to the 22 midterms in Pennsylvania. So it predicted that Oz was going to lose. It predicted that Fetterman was going to win clearly, the Shapiro race, etc. So going off of this Fox News poll, which normally sucks, but in Pennsylvania, for whatever reason, was the most accurate in the Keystone State, you'll notice that Trump is leading 49 to 47. So he's +2. That's the most accurate poll. So that's what gives me confidence that Trump is poised to win Pennsylvania as of today, because that's the most accurate pollster. And even if you're looking at the aggregate, which has obliviously terrible, disgusting poll results, such as this one by Susquehanna, which has a small sample size of 745, you'll notice right away that Biden's winning by 8 here, but that's still in the aggregate, and yet Trump still trumps that number and gets the average above board for him. And what's more, again, is when you look here, so right off the bat, here's what you notice, folks. So when you look at these aggregates, the bigger the sample size for the survey in the poll, the more Republican it gets, kind of, when you look at it. And even if you look at the biggest poll, which is the Fox News one, which was the most accurate, Trump's still winning it by 2. So that's huge. Now, if we look at President Biden's approval rating, his approval rating is negative 15.7, which is obliviously terrible. I mean, it's so bad. So Joe's approval rating is sub 40%, okay? Donald Trump lost the 2020 election when it was like 44 to 45% approval rating for him. So he's -5 where Trump is and then expects to win. Now, consulting the map again, what's important about Pennsylvania, folks, is that it's bigger than the other states for sure. And that's going to tend to have more Democratic funding thrown at it. Now, the funding leverage that the Democrats have over Donald Trump is still there, but it's less than it was in 2020. And it was less than what it was in 2016. And what's more, again, they're suing him up and down, even though these cases are failing or being postponed until after the election when Trump can pardon himself and then have that petition to the 6-3 Supreme Court. And obviously they're going to help him out. So when you're looking at that, those cases are fledgling. And even if you look at the reasons why these far off cases are even being thrown at his desk, are because of the fact that they're using his money up. That's their advantage right now. They don't have a good economy to run on. They don't have a healthcare reform that they have. It's just basically the fact that he's going to forgive a little bit of student loans. And that really does nothing for a coal miner in Pennsylvania. But anyway, moving on. So we have them trying to bleed his money because that's their only advantage is money and abortion. Now, abortion is an issue that we could see as flipping the state of Pennsylvania if there were some other keys that were turned. But in fact, those doors are locked still because you can have abortion as a wedge issue, but the fact is that Trump is somewhat liberal in that position as compared to other Republicans in the primary. And so once those people are cleared out the race, all of a sudden it looks like Trump is the pretty moderate option. Now, when we're looking at Pennsylvania, what's important about the state is that we have a pre-qualification for Donald Trump, and it's that he won the state in 2016. This is not a far-off fantasy. This is not, oh, well, he won it in 2006. No, he won it in 2016. Recent history. 2020, you could argue that it went a certain way. The point is, though, is that he's won it before. And so, when you're trying to get the girl after you've had her once, I mean, at that point, it's a lot easier than if you were to just start from new. So, anyway, Pennsylvania also has some other kinks and features I wanted to discuss. So, for example, Pennsylvania as a swing state is way more important than the other ones if you look at the mathematics of the race. Because if we look at it succinctly, if you win Pennsylvania as Trump, all you need to do is win one out of Michigan, Michigan, Georgia, or whatever have you. So it becomes a whole lot easier to win the race. Whereas if you guarantee lose Pennsylvania, you're going to have to win a lot of states. So if you're losing Pennsylvania, you're probably going to lose Minnesota. If you're losing Pennsylvania, you're probably losing New Hampshire. So then all of a sudden, Trump has to now run the table everywhere else. So you're probably going to have to win Wisconsin, Georgia, Arizona. And so you have to win 3. Whereas if you just win Pennsylvania, then you only have to win 1 or 2 out of 3 instead of 3 out of 3, if that makes sense. So basically the math is a whole lot simpler. Like the most reasonable scenario in this case would be something like this, okay? Where Trump only needs to win Georgia, which is a historically red state, and Pennsylvania, and he wins the election. So this is why Pennsylvania has a lot more weight than does Wisconsin or Arizona or Nevada, even though I'm biased. I'm in Arizona personally. So that's why Nevada is so much more important. And also keep in mind, there's some other things that gained my confidence in the result of Trump winning Pennsylvania. It has to do with the fact, folks, that Joe Biden had a State of the Union speech that did not bump his approval at all. In fact, we can consult the polling right now. If you look at President Biden's disapproval and approval rating, you'll notice that as of the last few weeks, it's actually gone from like 16.2 negative to negative 15.7. So a State of the Union that's supposed to help you by like 2 to 3%, as at least it did for Trump, boosted his approval by like 0.5%. So that is not much of a bump at all. I mean, that's pathetic. It's like if you had a midterm election and you gained 2 seats in the House. It really isn't something to laud. And it really doesn't change the math for Biden. And that's horrible for him. And if you look at any of these issues that are pertinent to Pennsylvania, like inflation, let's look at his approval rating for that as well. Now, right off the bat, what you'll notice is that he has a negative 62.6 disapproval rating, okay? So it's negative 27.3 on the average, and that's horrible. But let's look at crime. Pennsylvania has very big urban areas. Pittsburgh, we have Philadelphia. The Eagles are there. Those riots when they won the Super Bowl. Let's see how bad their crime issue is. So right off the bat, this is very obvious. His disapproval is negative 18.3%. So the vast majority of people in Pennsylvania think that he's doing a horrible job on crime. Now, let's look at another factor. This factor is going to have to do with the economy. Now, the economy is something that they will laud and say unemployment is at an all-time low, and this just isn't true. Now, when we're looking at the economy, it's a negative 17.2%. That's absurd. In fact, when you look at the aggregate, it's all over the place because, people are just fed up with everything. And when you look at it, negative 17, what president has ever won re-election over negative 17 disapproval on the economy? That's just common sense. And with direction of the country, lo and behold, imagine this number. I haven't seen it yet. Let's check it out, folks. So right off the bat, look at this number that's about to appear, okay? You open the Pokemon ball. What's the monster? I think it's a pretty egregious one, frankly. So here we go. Direction of the country, negative 40.3%. This is insane, folks. Come on. Really? This is horrible. This is actually really, really bad. This is way worse than I imagined, okay? Only 1/4 of Americans think that Joe Biden has the country going in the right direction. Again, this is after the disease, okay? This is after the virus. This is after the supposed economic depression onset by Donald Trump, okay? So just for this to be like, oh, we're in the biggest comeback of all time and people still think that the country's going in the wrong direction, at least 2/3 of people do, is actually insane, dog. That's like saying, oh, my hair is growing back faster than ever, yet 2/3 of people surveyed say that I'm losing hair still. That's like, dude, what the actually, dog, it's insane. I can't, I don't even have words to describe how bad this is. I had no idea it was this bad. Another talking point you're going to hear from a lot of people on election Twitter or whatever have you, whoever's coping today, they're going to tell you that Joe Biden's going to have a lot more funding in 2024 than Trump will, and therefore that'll make up the difference come November. Look, the truth is that Trump is leading the state of Pennsylvania for the first time ever with all these liberal slanted polls, like one saying that Biden's going to win by 8, which no meth head predictor would ever tell you. Maybe one on like 5 doses of morphine, they might tell you that. But I'm just saying most people, even under an underpass, would understand that Pennsylvania is not going 8 points either way for either candidate. But anyway, so basically Pennsylvania in this case is going to have more funding by the liberals than Republicans. That is true. I'll concede that. But folks, what's important about this? Well, it's that is true, but thus far, the funding has still been outsized Democrat regardless. And so they can cope and say, well, the funding is going to be more liberal in November. And it's like, yes, but it's been the entire time up until this point, and Trump is still winning. So unless money comes out of nowhere that nobody's ever heard of, which I don't know, might happen, it seems kind of unpredictable. Seems like, in fact, even with the fundraising advantage, Joe Biden is still going to lose the state to Donald Trump. Now, here's why it's going to flip today. Like if the election were today, it'd be Republican. But even in November, it's going to be even more red. Why? Well, listen about this. That's not even encountering or putting on RFK on the ballot in Pennsylvania, which he's on track to do with signatures. Okay. So once you get RFK on the ballot, that's going to help Trump. Okay. Jill Stein, a literal Green Party climate schizo, that's going to definitely help Donald Trump. Okay. Cornel West, who's an idiot who wants a $27 minimum wage. Okay. Another socialist blowhard. Okay. That's going to help Donald Trump again. So we're adding 3 candidates into the mix that are going to take votes from the Democrat. And then you're telling me that Biden's going to win, even though the polls that are anti-Trump for the most part are going to say that what? Biden's going to win? Who cares? That's not even true. And then also, what else is going on? Okay. So people could say, well, inflation was at one point, let's say 7%, and now it's 3%. Okay. You know how that works, folks, in real life terms? That means that inflation is going to go up another 3% between now and November. That means that things are going to get 3% more expensive. Are wages going to are they going to be catching up? No, probably not. Okay, so either there's a recession, a housing crisis, or something in November. Even if that doesn't happen, the present economic conditions as they are now are going to have it to where things will get slightly worse at best. That's the best result for Joe Biden. So imagine his disapproval with the economy already being negative 15 to 17%. Then add another couple percentage points as people realize that things aren't getting fixed. There's a little bit of a curmudgeon of hope between certain union people in Pennsylvania that maybe things will turn out better, and maybe by the fall, the economy rears ahead and it actually gets good like it was under Trump. But obviously, math doesn't show that to be the case currently. So it's only going to get worse. If you look at a guy in his 50s, you add another 8 months of aging, he's going to lose more hair. It's not like he's going to grow it back. So, I mean, that's the Biden economy in a nutshell. So that's okay. So this is the video covering why exactly Pennsylvania has flipped red for the first time in this election cycle and why I think it's going to last. See y'all in the next video. Adios.